Nathan Cole woke up every morning at 5. He made coffee, sat on his porch, and watched the sun rise over the golden fields of Haven's Rest. This was his life now. Simple, quiet, safe, 15 years ago. Things were very different 15 years ago. Nathan Cole was known across 12 star systems as the Reaper of Andromeda. He was the most dangerous human alive. He had killed more enemies than most soldiers could count. He had destroyed entire fleets. He had walked into impossible situations and walked out. Covered in blood that was not his own, the alien species of the galaxy spoke his name in whispers. Some thought he was a myth. Others knew he was real and feared him more than death itself, but that was the old Nathan Cole. The new Nathan Cole was a farmer. He grew vegetables and raised animals on a small farm at the edge of a colony world that most star maps did not even show. He had let his hair grow long. He had stopped carrying weapons. He smiled now, something he never did in the old days, the reason for all these changes had a name, Lily. His daughter was 17 years old. She had brown hair like her mother and green eyes like her father. She was smart and brave and stubborn. Nathan loved her more than anything in the universe. Lily's mother, Grace, had died when Lily was only 2 years old. Pirates attacked their transport ship while they were traveling between colonies. Grace died protecting their daughter. Nathan had killed every single pirate on that ship with his bare hands, but it was too late to save his wife. After that, Nathan made a promise. He stood over Grace's grave and swore that he would never kill again. He would raise Lily in peace. He would give her a normal life, far away from the wars and the violence that had defined his existence. For 15 years. He had kept that promise. On this particular morning, Lily came out to the porch with her own cup of coffee. She sat next to her father and watched the sunrise with him. "Dad," she said, "can we take the shuttle out today? I want to practice landing on rough terrain." Nathan smiled. "Sure, sweetheart." After breakfast, he had taught her everything he knew about flying. She was a natural pilot, just like he had been at her age. He had also taught her basic combat skills, telling her it was for self-defense. She did not know about his past. She did not know that her father was once the most feared human in the galaxy. Nathan wanted to keep it that way. They spent the morning flying over the mountains north of their farm. Lily practiced difficult landings on rocky ground. Nathan sat in the co-pilot seat and gave her instructions. She made a few mistakes, but she learned fast. "You're getting good," Nathan said as they flew back home. "A few more months and you'll be better than me." Lily laughed. "I doubt that. You never make mistakes." If only she knew, Nathan thought. He had made many mistakes in his life. Terrible mistakes. But raising her was not one of them. That afternoon, Nathan told Lily he needed to go into town for supplies. The nearest town, Port Helena, was about 30 minutes away by ground vehicle. Nathan kissed his daughter on the forehead and told her he would be back before dinner. "Stay safe," he said. "I always do," she replied. Nathan drove away, not knowing that this was the last peaceful moment he would ever have. 3 hours later, the sky above the coal farm turned dark. Lily was in the barn, working on the old tractor engine when she heard the sound. It was a deep humming noise like nothing she had ever heard before. She walked outside and looked up. 3 massive ships hung in the air above the farm. They were not human ships. The design was alien. Sharp angles and dark metal. Blue lights glowed along their hulls. Lily recognized them from her school lessons. Velthary ships? The Velthary Dominion was one of the most powerful alien empires in the galaxy. They controlled 47 star systems. They had fought wars with humanity before. The peace between the two species was fragile at best. What were they doing here? Lily ran toward the house. She needed to contact her father. She needed to call for help. She never made it. The first Velthary soldiers landed in the yard just as she reached the porch. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. They wore armor that seemed to absorb light. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. There were at least 20 of them. Lily did not hesitate. Her father had trained her well. She grabbed the emergency pistol hidden under the porch railing and fired at the nearest soldier. The shot hit him in the chest and he went down, but there were too many. She ran into the house and locked the door. It would not hold for long. She needed to send a message. Her father had shown her an old military communication device hidden in the basement. He said it was for emergencies only. This was definitely an emergency. Lily ran down to the basement. She found the device and turned it on. It was old, but it still worked. She typed in the emergency code her father had made her memorize years ago. "Dad," she said into the microphone, "they're here." "Valkyrie, at least 20? I don't know why. I'm going to try to hold them off, but there are too many. I love you. Please come find me." She hit send just as the basement door exploded inward. A blue stun beam hit her in the chest. Her body went rigid and she fell to the floor. The last thing she saw before everything went black was a Valkyrie soldier standing over her, speaking into a communicator in a language she did not understand. Then there was nothing. Nathan was loading supplies into his vehicle when his old military communicator buzzed. He had not heard that sound in 15 years. He had almost forgotten he still carried it. He pulled out the device and played the message, his daughter's voice. "Afraid but brave, Valkyrie, at least 20. Please come find me." The bags of supplies fell from his hands. His coffee cup shattered on the ground. For a long moment, Nathan Cole stood perfectly still. Then something changed. The farmer disappeared. The peaceful man who grew vegetables and watched sunrises vanished. In his place stood someone else. Someone older. Someone darker. Someone that the galaxy had tried very hard to forget. The Reaper of Andromeda opened his eyes. He got into his vehicle and drove toward his farm at maximum speed. But he already knew what he would find. The message was sent over an hour ago. The Valkyrie would be long gone by now. When he arrived, his house was on fire. The barn was destroyed. His crops were burning. In the middle of the yard, he found Lily's jacket, torn and covered in scorch marks. She was gone. Nathan fell to his knees. He held the jacket against his chest and screamed at the empty sky. The sound was not human. It was the sound of something breaking. Something that had been carefully built over 15 years, destroyed in a single afternoon. For 3 days, Nathan did not move from that spot. He sat in the ashes of his home, holding his daughter's jacket. He did not eat. He did not sleep. He just sat there, staring at nothing. On the 4th day, he stood up. The grief was still there. It would always be there. But now it was joined by something else. Something cold and sharp and terrible. Purpose. Nathan Cole walked to his buried weapons cache. He had hidden it years ago, promising himself he would never open it. He had lied to himself. He opened the cache and looked at the tools of his old trade, guns, knives, explosives, armor, everything. He needed to become the monster he used to be. He began to prepare. The Valkyrie had made a mistake. They thought taking his daughter would give them power over him. They thought he would negotiate. They thought he would surrender. They did not understand what they had done. They had not captured leverage. They had awakened a nightmare, and now that nightmare was coming for them. Nathan Cole had not worn armor in 15 years. It still fit perfectly. His body remembered the weight of it like an old friend. He strapped on his weapons one by one. Pistol on his right hip, knife on his left, rifle across his back, grenades on his belt. He looked at himself in the broken mirror of his destroyed bathroom. The man looking back was not a farmer. The man looking back was a killer. Good, Nathan thought. That's exactly what I need to be. His first stop was the local police station in Port Helena. The officers knew him as the quiet farmer who came into town twice a month for supplies. They did not know anything else about him. The sheriff was a kind man named Henry Brooks. He had been helpful in the past when Nathan needed advice about crop rotations or equipment repairs. Now he looked at Nathan with sadness in his eyes. "I heard what happened," Henry said. "I'm sorry, Nathan. We've contacted the colonial authority, but they say there's nothing they can do. The Valkyrie Dominion is too powerful. Their space is too far. Any rescue attempt would be considered an act of war." Nathan nodded slowly. He had expected this answer. "Thank you for trying, Henry." He turned to leave. "Nathan," the sheriff called after him. "What are you going to do?" Nathan stopped at the door. He did not turn around. "I'm going to get my daughter back." The sheriff saw something in Nathan's posture that made him afraid. He had known this man for years, but suddenly he felt like he was looking at a stranger. "How?" Henry asked. "You're just a farmer." Nathan finally turned. His eyes were cold and empty. "No, Henry, I'm not." He walked out without another word. Nathan drove to the edge of Port Helena, to a bar called the Rusty Anchor. It was a rough place, full of smugglers and criminals and people who asked no questions. Nathan had avoided it for 15 years. Today, he walked straight through the front door. The bar fell silent. Every eye turned to look at him. Nathan was wearing his old combat armor, covered with guns and knives. He looked like death walking. He approached the bar. The owner was a fat man with gray hair and scared eyes. His name was Danny Cruz. He had been a smuggler 30 years ago, before he retired and bought this bar. "I need information," Nathan said. Danny swallowed hard. "Information about what?" "I need transport to Valkyrie space. Fast and quiet." Danny laughed nervously. "That's impossible. Their border defenses would destroy any ship that tried to cross. You'd be dead before you got within a light year of their territory. Then I need a ship that won't get destroyed." Danny stared at him for a long moment. Then his eyes went wide. "Wait, I know you. I've seen your face before. Years ago, on the military channels?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "You're him. You're the Reaper." The bar went completely silent. Everyone had heard that name. Everyone knew the stories. Nathan did not confirm or deny. He just waited. Danny's hands were shaking. "They said you were dead. They said you died at the Battle of Kepler's Reach. They were wrong. What do you want with the Valkyrie?" "They took something from me. I'm going to take it back." Danny nodded slowly. He had heard about the abduction. Everyone had. A human girl taken from a remote farming colony. Nobody knew why. Now he understood. "There's a man on Station 12, Danny said quietly. "His name is Kyle Mason. He deals in weapons and ships. Illegal ones. He has connections everywhere. If anyone can help you get into Valkyrie space, it's him." Nathan memorized the name. "Thank you." He turned to leave. At the door, Danny called out, "Cole, wait." Nathan stopped. "The whole galaxy is going to know what you're doing. The Valkyrie have allies. They'll send bounty hunters after you, mercenaries, assassins. You'll have enemies coming from every direction." Nathan looked back over his shoulder. Good, I was hoping for a challenge. He walked out into the night. Station 12 was a massive space station in neutral territory. 3 days' travel from Haven's Rest. It was a place where all species mixed together, humans, Valkyrie, Corvins, Zilathi, others. The station had no laws except one. No violence in the common areas. Nathan arrived on a commercial transport, wearing civilian clothes over his armor. He did not want to attract attention. Not yet. He found Kyle Mason's shop in the lower levels of the station. It was called Mason's Surplus and Supply. The front room sold standard equipment. The back room sold things that were very much not standard. Nathan walked into the shop. Kyle was behind the counter, a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had been a weapons supplier during the Human-Valkyrie War, selling guns to both sides. He was not a good man, but he was useful. Kyle looked up when Nathan entered. His face went pale. "Close the shop," Nathan said. "We need to talk." Kyle locked the front door and led Nathan into the back room. His hands were shaking. "I thought you were dead," Kyle said. "Everyone thinks that." "They're all wrong. What do you want?" Nathan told him everything. His daughter. The Valkyrie. His plan to get her back. Kyle listened without interrupting. When Nathan finished, Kyle shook his head. "This is insane. The Valkyrie prison system is the most secure in the galaxy. Their main detention facility is called the Abyss. It's built into an asteroid in a decaying orbit around a gas giant. Nobody has ever escaped from it. Then I'll be the first. You can't do this alone. I know. That's why I'm here. I need a ship, weapons, and information about the abyss. Kyle thought for a long moment. He owed Nathan his life. 20 years ago, during the war, Nathan had saved his convoy from a Velthari ambush. Kyle had never forgotten. I can get you a ship, Kyle said finally. Military grade, fast and heavily armed. Weapons won't be a problem either. But information about the abyss? That's going to be harder. Then find someone who has that information. That could take weeks, months. Nathan leaned forward. His voice was cold and quiet. Then you better start looking now. Over the next 2 weeks, Nathan reached out to everyone he had ever known. Former soldiers who had served under his command. Criminals who owed him their lives. Intelligence operatives who remembered the man who had saved their planets. One by one, they answered the call. Some came out of loyalty. Some came out of debt. Some came because they hated the Velthari and wanted revenge. The reasons did not matter. What mattered was that they came. The first to arrive was Ryan Bennett. He had been Nathan's second-in-command during the war. Now he ran a private security company on one of the inner colonies. When he heard what happened, he dropped everything and came immediately. You should have called me sooner, Ryan said when he arrived at Station 12. I would have been here the same day. Nathan clasped his old friend's hand. I know, I just needed some time. Time for what? Time to remember who I used to be. The second to arrive was Sophie Park. She was the best pilot Nathan had ever known. During the war, she had flown Nathan's team into and out of impossible situations. Once, she had navigated through an asteroid field with a dead engine just to extract them from behind enemy lines. When do we leave? Sophie asked. She did not need convincing. She did not ask questions. She was ready. Soon, Nathan said. We're still waiting for a few more people. Marcus Webb arrived next. He was an explosives expert, the best in the galaxy. He also had a personal reason for wanting to hurt the Velthari. They had destroyed his homeworld 10 years ago. His entire family had died in the attack. I've been waiting for an excuse to blow up some Velthari buildings, Marcus said with a grim smile. Count me in. Others came too. A medic named Claire Howard. A hacker named Sam Ellis, a heavy weapons specialist named Derek Grant. Each one had their own reasons. Each one was willing to die the end of the second week. Nathan had assembled a crew of 7. It was not an army, but it did not need to be. These were some of the most skilled and dangerous humans alive. Kyle Mason presented them with their ship. It was an old military frigate, heavily modified with illegal upgrades. It was fast, tough, and bristling with weapons. It doesn't have a name? Kyle said. The original designation was stripped when I acquired it. Marcus smiled. He had brought paint that night. He painted a new name on the hull of the ship. Lily's Vengeance. Nathan stood on the dock and looked at the ship. His ship, his crew. His mission, 15 years ago, he had walked away from war. He had promised himself he would never go back. He had tried so hard to be a different person, but some promises cannot be kept. The Velthari had taken his daughter. They had destroyed his peaceful life. They had awakened the monster he had tried to bury. Now that monster was going to make them pay. Nathan turned to his crew. They were standing behind him, ready for orders, ready to follow him into hell itself. We leave in the morning, Nathan said. Get some rest. It's going to be a long journey. Nobody argued. Nobody complained. They simply nodded and went to their quarters. Nathan stayed on the dock for a while longer, staring at the ship that would carry them into enemy territory. Hold on, Lily, he thought. Daddy's coming, and nothing in the galaxy was going to stop him. Lily's Vengeance left Station 12 at dawn. The ship moved through neutral space, heading toward the outer edges of Velthari territory. Inside, Nathan gathered his crew in the main cabin. Let me be clear about something, he said. This mission will probably kill us all. The Velthari Dominion has the largest fleet in the known galaxy. Their prison system has never been breached. We are 7 people in one ship going against an empire of 47 star systems. He looked at each of them in turn. Anyone who wants to leave can do so now. I won't think less of you. This is my fight, not yours. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just stared back at him with hard eyes and steady hands. Ryan broke the silence. We didn't come all this way to quit, Nathan. We're with you until the end. The others nodded. Nathan felt something he had not felt in a long time. Pride. These people were willing to die. For his daughter, for him, he would not let their sacrifice be meaningless. All right then, he said. Let's talk about the plan. He activated the holographic display in the center of the cabin. A map of Valkyrie space appeared, showing their 47 systems and the location of every major military installation. Our target is the Abyss, Nathan said, pointing to a small dot near the center of the display. It's the Valkyrie's maximum security detention facility. According to our intelligence, that's where they're holding Lily. Sam Ellis, the hacker, spoke up. I've been studying their network traffic. The Abyss is located on an asteroid orbiting a gas giant called Valkyr 7. The prison is carved deep into the rock. It has its own power supply, its own air recyclers, and its own defense grid. How do we get in? Sophie asked. That's the hard part, Sam admitted. The Abyss has 3 layers of defense. First, there's a fleet of patrol ships that guard the approaches. Second, there's an automated weapons platform on the surface of the asteroid. Third, there's the prison itself, which has multiple security checkpoints and a small army of guards. Marcus smiled. Sounds like fun. It sounds like suicide, Claire said. The medic was practical above all else. Even if we get past the patrol ships and the weapons platform, how are we supposed to fight through an entire prison full of guards? Nathan had already thought about this. We don't fight through. We go around. He manipulated the display, showing a detailed scan of the asteroid. The Abyss was built on an old mining asteroid. Before the Valkyrie turned it into a prison, it was used to extract heavy metals. Most of the original mining tunnels were sealed when the prison was constructed, but not all of them. He pointed to a thin line on the display. This is an old maintenance shaft. It runs from the surface to the lowest levels of the prison. It's too small for Valkyrie to use, but humans can fit through it. How do you know about this? Ryan asked. Kyle Mason found someone who used to work on the construction crew. Cost me a lot of money, but the information is solid. Derek Grant, the heavy weapons expert, leaned forward. That takes care of getting inside. What about the patrol ships? We can't exactly sneak past a fleet in a frigate. Nathan smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We're not going to sneak past them. We're going to slip past them. He explained the plan. 3 civilian freighters, owned by contacts of Kyle Mason, would enter Valkyrie space on a routine trade run. Their cargo holds would be filled with agricultural supplies, perfectly legal and perfectly boring. Hidden in the sensor shadow of those freighters would be Lily's vengeance. It's an old trick, Nathan said. We used it during the war. If we stay close enough to the freighters and run silent, the Valkyrie sensors will read us as part of their signature. They'll see 3 ships instead of 4. And when we get close to the Abyss, Sophie asked, we detach and use the gas giant's gravity to slingshot around to the asteroid. If we time it right, we'll approach from the blind spot in their sensor coverage. The crew was quiet, processing the plan. It was risky. It required perfect timing and incredible skill. One mistake would mean death, but it was possible. There's one more thing, Nathan said. His voice was quieter now. I'm going into the prison alone. What? Ryan stood up. That's insane. You need backup. The maintenance shaft is too narrow for more than one person. And I'll move faster alone. Nathan held up his hand to stop the argument. The rest of you will have important jobs. Sophie keeps the ship ready for immediate extraction. Marcus plants charges on the prison's power core. Sam hacks their communications to create confusion. Claire stands by for medical emergency. Ryan and Derek guard our exit point. And if something goes wrong? Ryan asked. Nathan looked his old friend in the eye. If something goes wrong, you leave without me. Nathan, that's an order, Ryan. The mission is to save my daughter. If I die doing that, it's a price I'm willing to pay. But she has to survive, promise me. The room was silent. Finally, Ryan nodded. I promise. The journey to Valkyrie space took 4 days. During that time, Nathan trained with his crew. They practiced their roles over and over until every movement was automatic. They studied the layout of the abyss until they could navigate it blindfolded. On the third night, Nathan found himself alone in the cargo bay, looking at a photograph. It showed him with his wife and daughter, taken when Lily was just a baby. Grace was smiling, holding their daughter in her arms. Nathan was standing behind them, his arm around his wife's shoulders. He remembered that day. It was the happiest day of his life. You still have that old picture? Nathan turned. Sophie was standing in the doorway, watching him. I've carried it with me for 15 years, Nathan said. Grace used to say I was too sentimental. Sophie walked over and sat down next to him. Tell me about her, your wife. Nathan was quiet for a moment. He rarely talked about Grace. The memories were too painful. She was the bravest person I ever knew, he said finally. When the pirates attacked our ship, she didn't run. She didn't hide. She picked up a weapon and stood between them and our daughter. She knew she was going to die, but she didn't care. She just wanted to give Lily a chance. She sounds amazing. She was. Nathan looked at the photograph. I promised her I would protect our daughter. I promised I would give her a normal life, and I failed. Sophie shook her head. You didn't fail. You gave Lily 15 years of peace and happiness. You raised her to be strong and brave. That's not failure, Nathan. That's success. Nathan did not answer, but something in his chest loosened just a little. On the 4th day, they reached the rendezvous point. 3 freighters were waiting for them, just as planned. Their captains were old contacts who owed Kyle Mason favors. They did not ask questions. They did not want to know what was happening. Lily's vengeance moved into position behind the middle freighter. Sophie matched their speed perfectly, keeping them hidden in the larger ship's sensor shadow. Beginning approach to Valkyrie space, she announced. Everyone stay quiet and stay calm. Nathan sat in the main cabin, watching the displays. They were about to enter enemy territory. Once they crossed the border, there was no turning back. Think they'll notice us? Marcus asked. No, Nathan said. Their sensors are designed to detect military vessels, not small ships hiding behind freighters. As long as we don't do anything stupid, we'll be invisible. The crossing took 6 hours. 6 hours of tension and silence. 6 hours of waiting for alarms that never came. When they finally reached the inner systems, Nathan allowed himself to relax. They had made it past the first obstacle, but the hardest part was still ahead. Setting course for Valkyrie 7, Sophie said. We'll reach the gas giant in 18 hours. Nathan nodded. 18 hours until they reached the abyss. 18 hours until he found out if his daughter was still alive. He went to his quarters and tried to sleep, but rest would not come. His mind kept replaying the same images over and over. Lily as a baby, Lily learning to walk, Lily flying the shuttle for the first time, Lily laughing, crying, growing up. Hold on, sweetheart, he thought. I'm almost there, somewhere in the cold depths of space. In a prison carved from an asteroid, a 17-year-old girl was waiting for rescue. She did not know her father was coming. She did not know that the deadliest man in the galaxy was about to burn through everything. The Valkyrie had to get her back, but she would find out soon enough, and so would the Valkyrie. The abyss hung in the darkness like a wound in space. The asteroid was black and jagged, covered with weapon platforms and sensor arrays. Blue lights blinked along its surface, marking guard towers and patrol routes. Behind it, the massive gas giant Valkyrie 7 swirled with storms the size of Earth. The planet's gravity pulled at the asteroid, slowly dragging it toward destruction. In another 100 years, the abyss would fall into the planet and be crushed, but that was not Nathan's concern. His concern was getting inside before the patrol ships found them. Detaching from freighter convoy now, Sophie said. Her voice was steady, but Nathan could see the tension in her shoulders. Beginning gravity slingshot maneuver. Lily's vengeance drifted away from the freighters, using minimal power to avoid detection. The ship fell toward the gas giant, letting its gravity pull them around in a wide arc. For 3 hours, they flew in silence. No engines, no lights. Nothing that might alert the Valkyrie sensors. Nathan watched the displays, counting down the minutes. Every second they remained undetected was a victory. Every second brought them closer to Lily. Approaching the blind spot, Sam announced from his station. Their sensor coverage has a gap between platforms 7 and 8. We have a window of about 4 minutes. That's enough, Nathan said. Sophie, take us in. The ship's engines fired in short bursts, pushing them toward the asteroid. Sophie flew like an artist, making tiny adjustments to keep them in the sensor gap. One wrong move and they would be spotted. One wrong move and the mission would be over, but Sophie did not make wrong moves. Landing zone in sight, she said. Setting down in 30 seconds. The ship touched down on the dark side of the asteroid, hidden from the weapon platforms by a ridge of rock. Nathan was on his feet immediately, heading for the airlock. Everyone knows their jobs, he said. Marcus, you have 2 hours to place the charges on the power core. Sam, start hacking their communications as soon as Marcus is in position. The rest of you hold this location and be ready to leave the moment I have Lily. Ryan grabbed his arm. Be careful in there. Nathan nodded. I'll be back. With my daughter. He sealed his helmet and stepped into the airlock. The outer door opened and he jumped down onto the asteroid's surface. The gravity was weak here. Each step sent him, floating slightly before he came back down. He found the maintenance shaft exactly where the intel said it would be. The entrance was hidden behind a pile of debris, sealed with a rusty hatch that had not been opened in decades. Nathan cut through the lock with his plasma torch and climbed inside. The shaft was dark and narrow. Nathan had to crawl on his hands and knees, pulling himself forward inch by inch. The metal walls pressed against his shoulders. His breathing echoed in his helmet. For an hour he crawled through the darkness. Sometimes the shaft went straight. Sometimes it angled downward. Sometimes it opened into wider chambers before narrowing again. Finally, he reached the end. A grate blocked his path, looking out into a prison corridor. Nathan peered through the gaps and saw gray metal walls, harsh white lights, and a security camera mounted on the ceiling. He waited until the camera turned away, then kicked out the grate and dropped into the corridor. His boots made no sound on the metal floor. 15 years of peaceful farming had not dulled his skills. He moved through the prison like a ghost. The corridors were arranged in a grid pattern, just like the plans had shown. Nathan navigated from memory, avoiding patrol routes and camera coverage. The prison was huge. It held over 5,000 inmates, mostly political prisoners and enemies of the Dominion. The Valkyrie did not believe in quick executions. They believed in long, slow suffering. Nathan's anger burned hotter with every step. He found the cell block where Lily was being held on the lowest level. This was the high-security section reserved for the most important prisoners. The corridor was guarded by 2 Valkyrie soldiers. Standing on either side of a heavy door. Nathan did not hesitate. He came out of the shadows like death itself. The first guard died before he even knew he was under attack. Nathan's knife opened his throat with surgical precision. The second guard had time to raise his weapon before Nathan's pistol spoke. A single shot, silenced and deadly, punched through the guard's skull. Both bodies hit the floor. Within 3 seconds of each other, Nathan stepped over them and approached the cell door. It was sealed with a biometric lock. He pulled out a device Sam had given him and pressed it against the lock panel. 3 seconds later, the door clicked open. The cell beyond was small and cold. Medical equipment lined the walls. In the center, strapped to a metal table, was his daughter. Lily looked thin and pale. There were bruises on her arms where they had drawn blood. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. They had been running experiments on her, trying to understand human biology. Nathan felt something break inside him. All the rage, all the pain, all the fear he had been carrying condensed into a single point of cold fury. He would kill them all. Every single Valkyrie who had touched his daughter would die. But first, he had to save her. He cut the straps holding her down and lifted her in his arms. She was lighter than he remembered. Too light. They had not been feeding her properly. "Lily," he whispered. "Lily, wake up." Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she did not seem to recognize him. Then her eyes went wide. "Dad?" Nathan felt tears on his cheeks. He had not cried since Grace died. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm taking you home." "How did you find me?" "I'll explain later. Right now, we need to move." He helped her stand. She was weak, but she could walk. That was enough. They made their way back through the prison, Nathan half carrying his daughter. The corridors were empty. Too empty. Something was wrong. Then the alarms started. Red lights flashed. Sirens wailed. A voice boomed over the speakers in the Velthari language, announcing a security breach. "They found us," Nathan said. "We need to run." He pulled Lily through the corridors, no longer worrying about stealth. Speed was all that mattered now. Behind them, he could hear boots pounding on metal. Guards were coming from every direction. "Sam," Nathan said into his communicator. "I need a distraction." "Already on it," Sam replied. "Hacking their internal sensors. They won't know which corridor you're in for the next 5 minutes." 5 minutes. It would have to be enough. Nathan ran, pulling Lily behind him. She stumbled but kept going. She was his daughter. She was strong. They reached the maintenance shaft and Nathan helped her climb in. She crawled faster than he expected, driven by fear and adrenaline. Behind them, the prison was in chaos. Marcus's charges were in place, ready to blow on command. Sam had the guards chasing shadows. Everything was going according to plan. Then Nathan heard it. Velthari voices coming from the shaft ahead of them. They had found the entrance. "Stop," Nathan whispered. "Someone's ahead." He pulled out his pistol and crawled forward. In the darkness, he could see the glow of Velthari eyes. 3 guards blocking their path. Nathan did not have room to maneuver. The shaft was too narrow. He would have to shoot them from where he was. He aimed carefully and fired 3 times. 3 guards fell. "Move," he said to Lily. "Quickly." They climbed over the bodies and kept going. The exit was just ahead. Nathan could see starlight through the gaps in the hatch. "Sophie," he said into his communicator. "We're coming out." "Be ready. I see you," Sophie replied. "Ship is warmed up and ready to fly." Nathan kicked open the hatch and pulled Lily out onto the asteroid's surface. Lily's vengeance was waiting, its engines glowing. Ryan stood at the airlock, waving them forward. They ran behind them. Nathan heard the sound of more Velthari emerging from the shaft. Weapons fire crackled through the thin atmosphere. A shot hit the ground near his feet. Ryan returned fire, covering their approach. Derek was at the ship's guns. Laying down suppressing fire on the enemy positions, Nathan pushed Lily through the airlock and turned back. The Velthari were pouring out of the shaft now, dozens of them. "Marcus," Nathan said. "Do it!" Deep inside the prison, the charges exploded. The abyss shuddered. A massive explosion erupted from the asteroid's surface as the power core went critical. The weapon platforms went dark. The guard towers collapsed. In the chaos, Lily's vengeance lifted off. Sophie pushed the engines to maximum, rocketing away from the dying prison. Behind them, the abyss broke apart. The explosion had destabilized the asteroid's structure. Chunks of rock tumbled into the gas giant's gravity well, pulled down into the swirling storms below. The Velthari prison, the most secure facility in the galaxy, was destroyed. And Nathan Cole had his daughter back. Inside the ship, Nathan held Lily tight. She was crying. He was crying. 15 years of walls and barriers came crashing down, and he let himself feel everything he had been holding back. "I thought I'd never see you again," Lily whispered. "I would have torn apart the entire galaxy to find you," Nathan said. "Nothing could have stopped me. Nothing." She looked up at him, her eyes red but her voice steady. "The guards talked about you. They called you the Reaper. They said you killed thousands of their soldiers in the war." Nathan was quiet for a moment. He had hoped she would never learn about his past, but now it seemed unavoidable. "It's true," he said. "I did terrible things before you were born. I was a monster. When your mother died, I promised I would change. I promised I would be better for you." Lily put her hand on his cheek. The escape from Valkyrie space was not easy. The moment the abyss exploded, every ship in the system received an alert. The Valkyrie scrambled their response fleet within minutes. Dozens of warships converged on the gas giant, searching for whoever was responsible. Sophie flew like she had never flown before. She pushed Lily's vengeance through asteroid fields and gravity wells, taking risks that should have killed them all. Behind them, Valkyrie destroyers fired their weapons, trying to catch the small human ship. "We've got 12 ships on our tail," Sam announced. "No, make that 15. Can we lose them?" Nathan asked. "Not in a straight race? They're faster than us." Nathan looked at the tactical display. They were 3 systems away from neutral space. 3 hyperspace jumps. Each jump would give them a few minutes of breathing room before the Valkyrie caught up again. "First jump point coming up," Sophie said. "Everyone hold on." The ship lurched as they entered hyperspace. The stars stretched into lines of light. For a brief moment, everything was quiet. Then they emerged on the other side, and the Valkyrie were already there. "They anticipated our jump," Ryan said. "There's a blockade ahead." 20 ships formed a wall between them and the next jump point. There was no way through. "We need a new route," Nathan said. "There's an alternative," Sophie replied. "But it goes through the Kellen Passage. It's a narrow corridor between 2 black holes. One wrong move and we get torn apart." "Do it," Sophie adjusted their course. Lily's vengeance dove toward the Kellen Passage, leaving the blockade behind. The Valkyrie ships turned to follow, but they were slower. They had not expected the humans to take such a dangerous path. The Kellen Passage was terrifying. On both sides, space itself bent and twisted. The black holes pulled at the ship, trying to drag it to destruction. Sophie's hands danced across the controls, making constant adjustments to keep them on course. "We're through," she announced finally. "Next jump point in 2 minutes. Valkyrie ships?" Nathan asked. "They didn't follow us through the passage." "They're going around?" "We have a head start." They made the second jump. Then the third. Each time they emerged just ahead of their pursuers. Each time Sophie found a way to stay alive. Finally, they reached the border of neutral space. The Valkyrie fleet pulled back. Attacking in neutral territory would mean war with a dozen other species, including humanity. The Dominion was powerful, but not powerful enough to fight the entire galaxy. Inside Lily's vengeance, the crew collapsed with relief. They had done the impossible. They had invaded the most powerful alien empire, destroyed their most secure prison, and escaped with their lives, but not everyone had made it. "Where's Marcus?" Lily asked. Looking around, the crew went silent. Nathan felt a cold weight in his chest. "He didn't make it out," Ryan said quietly. "When we were leaving the asteroid, he stayed behind to hold a choke point. It gave us the 30 seconds we needed to escape." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "He died for me?" Nathan put his arm around her. "He died because he believed in something. He believed that some things are worth dying for." The ship was quiet for a long time after that. They returned to neutral space and docked at Station 12. Kyle Mason met them at the airlock, his face pale with shock. "I can't believe you actually did it," he said. "The entire galaxy is talking about what happened. The Valkyrie are furious." "They should be," Nathan said. "I destroyed their prison. It's worse than that. When the abyss went down, 3 of their destroyers were caught in the explosion. They lost over 2,000 personnel." Nathan felt nothing. Those destroyers had been trying to kill his daughter. They got what they deserved. What happens now? Sophie asked. Kyle shook his head. "The Valkyrie High Command is debating how to respond. Some of them want war. Others think that would be a mistake." "Why would it be a mistake?" Ryan asked. "Because of what Nathan did. He walked into their most secure facility, alone, and walked out with his daughter. He destroyed their prison and killed hundreds of their soldiers. If one human can do that, what could an army of humans do?" Nathan understood. The Valkyrie were afraid. For the first time in their history, they had encountered something they could not control. Something they could not predict. Humanity. 3 days later. Nathan did something he had been planning since the escape. He recorded a message. He sat in front of a camera, wearing his old combat armor. Behind him hung a photograph of the abyss exploding. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. My name is Nathan Cole. Some of you know me as the Reaper of Andromeda. I retired 15 years ago because I wanted peace. I wanted to raise my daughter away from the wars and the killing. He paused, letting his words sink in. The Velthari Dominion took that from me. They kidnapped my daughter. They held her in their most secure prison. They experimented on her like an animal. They thought this would give them power over me. They thought I would negotiate. They thought I would surrender. Another pause. They were wrong. He leaned forward, and his voice dropped to a whisper that somehow seemed louder than a shout. Let this serve as a message to every species in this galaxy. Humanity will not be intimidated. We will not be controlled. We will not be threatened. And if you touch our families, if you harm our children, there is no corner of the universe where you will be safe from our response. He sat back. The Velthari called me a monster. They were right. I am a monster. And I am not the only one. Every human parent, every human soldier, every human citizen is capable of becoming what I am. We are a species born from struggle. We have fought our way up from nothing. We have survived extinction events that would have destroyed any other race. He looked directly into the camera. Remember that. Remember what happens when you threaten our people. Remember the abyss, and remember this: we don't forgive. We don't forget. And we never, ever stop fighting for our own. The message ended. Kyle Mason sent it across every major galactic communication network. Within hours, it had been seen by billions of beings on thousands of worlds. The reaction was immediate, within the Velthari High Command. The debate about war ended abruptly. Their intelligence division presented a new report, showing that human military volunteers were signing up at a rate not seen since the last Great War. The Reaper's message had united humanity in a way nothing else could have. The Dominion chose diplomacy over destruction. They withdrew their forward fleets. They closed their borders. They issued a formal statement condemning the rogue elements who had kidnapped Lily Cole, claiming they had acted without authorization. It was a lie, of course. Everyone knew it was a lie, but it was a lie that allowed both sides to avoid a war that neither side wanted. Nathan Cole took his daughter back to Haven's Rest. The farmhouse was still burned. The barn was still destroyed. But the land was still there, and the fields still stretched to the horizon. They rebuilt. Ryan helped with the construction. Sophie visited when she could. Claire stayed for a few weeks to make sure Lily recovered from her injuries. They had become family during the mission, and family does not abandon each other. On the day the new house was finished, Nathan and Lily sat on the porch and watched the sunset. The sky turned orange and pink and purple, colors spreading across the clouds like paint on canvas. "Dad?" Lily said, double quotes, "Yes, sweetheart." "The message you sent. You said you were a monster?" Nathan nodded. I am. But you're also my father. The man who taught me to fly. The man who made me breakfast every morning. The man who came across the galaxy to save me." She took his hand. "I think you're both. Monster and father. Killer and protector. Maybe that's what being human means. Being everything at once?" Nathan thought about that for a long time. "Maybe you're right," he said finally. "Maybe we contain multitudes." They sat in silence, watching the stars come out. The galaxy was watching Haven's Rest. Every species, every empire, every power in the known universe was aware that the deadliest man in the galaxy lived on this small, quiet farming world. They would not bother him again. Nathan Cole had sent his message. He had shown them what happens when humanity is pushed too far. Now all he wanted was peace, but this time he would not bury his past. He would not pretend to be something he was not. He was a farmer and a father and a monster. He was all of these things, and he was not ashamed. If anyone threatened his family again, he would remind them why the galaxy had learned to fear the name Nathan Cole. But for now, there was the sunset. There was his daughter. There was the quiet life he had fought so hard to protect. And that was enough. In the darkness between the stars, The Velthari remembered. The Korvans remembered. Every species that had ever underestimated humanity remembered humans were not the strongest. They were not the most advanced. They were not the most numerous but they were the most dangerous because when you threatened what they loved, they did not stop. They did not negotiate. They did not give up. They burned their way through whatever stood in their path. And they kept burning until there was nothing left but ashes and silence. The galaxy had learned that lesson once before, thanks to Nathan Cole. They would never forget it again, on the porch of a rebuilt farmhouse, on a quiet planet at the edge of known space. A father and daughter watched the stars and dreamed of peace, and the galaxy, for once, let them have it.